Little Red Riding Hood by the Brothers Grimm. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing she would not have given to the child. Once she gave her a little cape of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would wear nothing else, so she was always called the Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, a Little Red Riding Hood. Here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak. They will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly, and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will take great care," said Little Red Riding Hood to her mother, and gave her hand on it. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Riding Hood entered the wood, a wolf met her. Little Red Riding Hood did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Riding Hood," said he. "Thank you kindly, wolf. Whither away so early?" "Little Riding Hood, to my grandmother's." "What have you got in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have something good to make her stronger." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "A good quarter of a league farther on in the wood. Her house stands under 3 large oak trees. The nuts are just below. You surely must know it," replied Little Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, "What a tender young creature! What a nice plump mouthful! She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily so as to catch both." So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Riding Hood, and then he said, "See, Little Riding Hood, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look around? I believe too that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk gravely along as if you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is merry." Little Riding Hood raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and through the trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, "Suppose I take grandmother a fresh rose that would please her too. It is so early that I shall still get in a good time." And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther on, and ran after it, and so got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" "Little Riding Hood," replied the wolf. "She is bringing cake and wine. Open the door." "Lift the latch," called out the grandmother. "I am too weak and cannot get up." The wolf lifted the latch, the door flew open, and without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cape, laid himself in bed, and drew the curtains. Little Riding Hood, however, had been running away about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out the way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage door standing open, and when she walked into the room, she had a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, and other times I like being with grandmother so much." She called out, "Good morning," but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother, with her cap pulled over her face, and looked very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have." "The better to hear you with, child," was the reply. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, dear." "But grandmother, what large hands you have, the better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have, the better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this, when one bound he was out of bed and swallowed up Little Riding Hood. When the wolf had appeased his appetite, he laid down again in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. The huntsman was just passing the house and thought to himself, "How the old woman is snoring. I must see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find thee here, thou old sinner?" said he. "I have long sought thee." Then just as he was about to fire him, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother, and she might still be saved. So he did not fire, but took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. When he had made 2 snips, he saw the Little Riding Hood shining, and then he made 2 snips more, and the little girl sprang out crying. Ah, how frightened I had been! How dark it is inside the wolf! And after the 8th grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Little Riding Hood, however, quickly fetched great stones with which they filled the wolf's body, and when he awoke he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that he fell down at once and fell dead. Then all 3 were delighted. The huntsman drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine which Little Red Riding Hood had brought and revived. But Little Riding Hood thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood when my mother had forbidden me to do so." It is also related that once when Little Riding Hood was again taking cakes to the grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and tried to entice her from the path. Little Red Riding Hood, however, was on her guard and went straight forward on her way, and told her grandmother that she had met the wolf and that he had said good morning to her, but with such wicked look in his eyes that if he had not been up on the public road, she was certain he would have eaten her up. "Well," said the grandmother, "we will shut the door that he may not come in." Soon after, the wolf knocked and cried, "Open the door, grandmother. I am Little Riding Hood, and am fetching you some cakes." But they did not speak or open the door, so the greybeard stole twice or thrice round the house, and last jumped on the roof, intending to wait until Little Red Riding Hood went home in the evening, and then to steal after her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother saw what was in his thoughts. In front of the house was a great stone trough, so she said to the child, "Take the pail, Little Riding Hood. I made some sausages yesterday, so carry the water in which I boiled them to the trough." Little Riding Hood carried until the great trough was full. Then the smell of the sausages reached the wolf, and he sniffed and peeped down, and at last stretched out his neck so far that he could no longer keep his footing and began to slip, and slipped down from the roof straight into the great trough and was drowned. But Little Riding Hood went joyously home and never did anything to harm anyone.